So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Fate's Day at Night. So let's start the series. The barrier breaks. Too easily. Too fast. Shiro Uzumaki feels it happen, a shudder in the air, like glass splintering underwater. He's 6 years old, sitting cross-legged in the Yuzushi temple courtyard, trying to mold chakra that won't listen. The leaf on his forehead trembles for half a second before falling. Again. The instructor, a tired man with Uzumaki red hair already fading to gray, sighs. Try again, Shiro. He doesn't get the chance. The explosion comes without warning. Not from outside the walls, inside. Somewhere near the eastern gate. The ground lurches sideways, throwing Shiro onto his hands. Gravel bites into his palms. Children scream. The instructor is already moving, shoving students behind the stone altar, his face gone from tired to terrified in the space between heartbeats. What? Shiro starts. The second explosion drowns him out. This one he feels in his chest. His lungs compress. His ears ring with a high, thin whine that cuts through everything. The sky above the courtyard turns orange, not sunset orange. Fire orange. The kind of orange that means buildings are falling and people are burning in. Stay calm. The thought isn't his. Or maybe it is. Maybe it's the part of him that's always been there, the part that doesn't match the memories of a childhood that isn't quite his. The part that looks at fire and doesn't see destruction. It sees something worse. Possibility. The instructor grabs his arm. Move! Move! They're running, all of them, a tangle of small bodies in fear, toward the temple's inner chambers. The stone walls are thick there. Old seals line every surface, glowing faintly in the lantern light. Protective wards. The kind that are supposed to keep this place safe. Supposed to. More screams. Closer now. Adult voices, shouting commands Shiro can't make out over the ringing in his ears. The clash of metal. Jutsu detonations that make the walls vibrate like drum skins. The instructor shoves them through a narrow door, into a storage room filled with scrolls and dust. Stay here. Don't move. Don't make a sound. What's happening? One of the older kids, maybe 8, with the clan's distinctive red hair pulled back in a tail. Her voice is shaking. The instructor hesitates. It's that hesitation that tells Shiro everything. If it were an attack they could fight, the man would be shouting orders. If it were a breach they could contain, he'd be sealing doors. But he's standing in a storage room with a dozen children, and his hands are empty, and his face. His face looks like a man who already knows. I'll come back, the instructor says. Stay here. He leaves. The door closes. And for one long, terrible moment, there is silence except for the children's breathing and the distant, muffled sounds of a village dying. Shiro presses his back against the wall. His hands are bleeding from the gravel. His chakra, what little he has, is a knotted, useless tangle in his gut. He can't fight. He can't run. He's 6 years old and he has never been able to make a single jutsu work, and he is going to die in this room with these children, and there is nothing he can do. No. The thought cuts through the panic like a blade. That's not true. He closes his eyes. The world doesn't go dark, it never does, not for him. Behind his eyelids there's something else. A blueprint. A schematic. A way of seeing that he's never been able to explain to anyone because he doesn't have the words for it. Because the Uzumaki healers just shook their heads and called it a chakra disorder and gave him bitter medicine that didn't help. He sees the room. Not the way a normal person sees, walls and floor and ceiling. He sees the structure. The grain of the wood in the support beams. The density of the stone. The seals carved into every surface, their chakra flows like rivers of light. And beyond the walls he feels it. Fire. It's spreading. He can trace its path without opening his eyes, through the eastern district, up the main avenue, curling around the marketplace. Wood burning. Cloth burning. Flesh. He opens his eyes. Shiro? The girl next to him, his age, maybe younger, he doesn't know her name, is staring at him. You're bleeding. He looks down at his hands. The cuts are deeper than he thought. Blood drips onto the packed earth floor, dark red against the brown. It's okay. The thought is strange. Calm. He's not calm. His heart is hammering so hard he can feel it in his throat. But underneath the fear, there's something else. Something cold. Something that's looking at the door and the walls and the screaming outside and calculating. You can't fight. He knows that. You can't run fast enough to escape. He knows that too. So what can you do? The door bursts open. It's not the instructor. It's a man Shiro doesn't recognize, not Uzumaki, not from the village. His armor is dark, practical, stained with something wet and red. His eyes sweep the room, find the children huddled against the far wall, and he smiles. It's not a cruel smile. That's what makes it worse. It's the smile of a man who has found something he expected to find. Something he was sent to find. The Uzumaki children, he says. His voice is calm, conversational. They said you'd be hidden in the temple? Behind him, the hallway is red. Not with seals. Not with paint. Shiro doesn't look at it. He looks at the man's sword. It's a standard blade, not a chakra weapon, not anything special. Steel folded in the land of fire style, edge slightly chipped from recent use. The hilt is wrapped in black cord, worn smooth from handling. The guard is plain iron. But when Shiro looks at it, he doesn't see steel. He sees structure. The lattice of carbon atoms in the folded metal. The way they've been arranged, layer over layer, hammered and folded and hammered again. The edge geometry, designed to cut flesh and bone with minimal resistance. The balance point, 2 fingers width from the guard. He sees how it was made. He sees how it could be made again. Trace. The word comes from somewhere deep. Somewhere that isn't Yuzushi Ogakure. Somewhere that isn't even this life. It comes from the dreams he's always had, dreams of fire and swords and a hill that stretches on forever, covered in blades. He doesn't think. He reaches. And something answers. The pain hits first. Like his bones are on fire. Like every nerve in his body has been stripped bare and dipped in salt. He gasps, actually gasps, loud enough that the girl next to him flinches, and the man with the sword turns. What's this? The man steps forward. One of you trying to be brave? Shiro's hands are shaking. His chakra, what little he has, the twisted, useless thing that's never worked, is surging through his body like floodwater through a dry riverbed. It's not supposed to be here. His body wasn't made for this. His circuits. He doesn't know where that word came from either. But he knows what it means. He knows what he has to do. The sword appears in his hands. It's not real. He knows it's not real. It's projection, that's the word for it, the technique that's been sitting in the back of his mind since before he could walk, waiting for a moment like this. He's pulled the blueprint from the man's sword and recreated it in his hands, solid and sharp and real enough. It's also too heavy. He's 6 years old. He's never held a real weapon in his life. The sword's balance is perfect for an adult warrior, which means it's completely wrong for a child. The weight pulls him forward, almost making him stumble. His wrists, too small, too weak, scream in protest. But he's holding it. The man stops. His smile fades. For a second, just a second, there's something in his eyes that might be fear. Then he laughs. A sword? He shakes his head. You think that makes you a warrior, little Uzumaki? You can barely lift it. Shiro knows he's right. He knows that in a real fight, this man would kill him in seconds. The sword in his hands is a child's fantasy, a desperate grasp at something he doesn't understand. He can't swing it. Can't block with it. Can barely hold it. But he doesn't need to fight. He just needs to buy time. Behind him, the children are pressed against the wall. The girl next to him is crying silently. The older ones, the ones who've started training, who can at least make a basic clone or substitution, are trying to look brave. None of them are looking at the sword in his hands. They're looking at him. Run, Shiro says. His voice doesn't shake. He doesn't know how that's possible. His whole body is shaking, the sword trembling in his grip, the projected blade already starting to flicker at the edges because he can't maintain it, can't hold the image in his mind when his circuits are burning and his chakra is tearing itself apart. But his voice is steady. The back wall, he says. There's a gap in the seals. You can get through to the old tunnels. He doesn't know how he knows that. But he does, the same way he knows the sword's weight and balance and structure. He's been seeing the room's blueprint since he closed his eyes. He knows every weak point in the walls, every gap in the wards, every possible exit. Shiro, one of the older kids, starts. Go. The man's eyes narrow. He takes a step forward. You think I'm going to let them? Shiro moves. He doesn't swing the sword. He can't. But he can throw it. The projected blade leaves his hands, wobbling in the air, and for one terrible moment he thinks it's going to fall short, going to clatter harmlessly on the ground. It doesn't. It's not a good throw. It's not accurate, not powerful, not anything a warrior would call a real attack. But it's unexpected. And it's sharp. The man has to dodge. Just a half step to the side, a casual movement that tells Shiro he could have blocked it if he wanted to. But he dodges. And in that half second, the gap between him and the children is just wide enough. The older kids move. They're not trained warriors either. But they're Uzumaki. They have chakra, real chakra, the kind that works. The girl who was crying grabs Shiro's arm and pulls him toward the back wall. Another boy, Shiro doesn't know his name, starts forming hand seals, hands shaking, lip bleeding where he's bitten it. Substitution. The boy gasps. Nothing happens. Focus! The older girl, the one with the ponytail, shoves him toward the wall. Just get through! The man is recovering. He's turning, his sword coming up, his face no longer smiling. You little! Shiro's second projection appears in his hand. This one is smaller. A knife, no, a kunai. The standard Uzumaki design, balanced for throwing. He doesn't know how to throw it. He's never held one before. But he knows its structure, knows how it's supposed to move through the air, knows the exact angle that will. He throws. It misses? Of course it misses. He's 6 years old. He's never thrown a weapon in his life. The kunai clatters against the door frame, 3 feet left of the man's head, and Shiro's circuits scream in protest because he's already pushed too far, already done too much. His body is a broken thing that was never meant to hold this much power. But the man flinches. That's all Shiro needs. The back wall is old stone, worn smooth by centuries of hands and feet. The gap in the seals is exactly where he said it would be, a hairline fracture in the ward network, just wide enough for a child to slip through. The older kids are already pushing through, one by one, their chakra flaring as they squeeze past the broken barrier. The girl is still holding Shiro's arm. Come on! He doesn't move. He's looking at the man. You're going to die, the man says. He's not smiling anymore. His voice is flat. You know that, right? Whatever you think you're doing, you're going to die. Shiro knows. His circuits are burning. His chakra, the twisted, useless thing that's never worked, is pooling in his chest like acid. He can feel his projected sword flickering where it fell, the image already starting to dissolve back into the nothing it came from. He can't make another one. He can barely stand. But the children are through the wall. All except him. And the girl who's still holding his arm. You too, he says to her. Go. I'm not leaving you. Go. He pushes her. Hard. She stumbles back, hits the wall, and for a second she looks like she's going to argue, but then her eyes go wide, looking past him, and he knows without turning that the man is moving. She goes through. The wall closes behind her. And Shiro Uzumaki, 6 years old, alone in a storage room with a man who kills children for a living, does the only thing he can. He closes his eyes. And he sees the sword in the man's hand, the kunai on the floor, the wooden beams in the ceiling, dry and old and full of splinters, the seals on the walls, glowing faintly, their chakra flows like rivers of light. He sees the one thing the man didn't notice. The seal on the floor. It's old, older than the temple, maybe older than Yuzushi Ogakure itself. Part of the original foundation. The Uzumaki were seal masters, the best in the world, and they built their village to last. Every stone, every beam, every wall is part of a network that's been here for centuries. And right now, with the barrier broken and the wards failing and the whole village burning, that network is unstable. Shiro can see it. The chakra flows, disrupted by the attack. The seals, overloaded by the strain. The cracks spreading through the foundation, invisible to normal eyes but bright as lightning to his. He knows what happens when a seal network collapses. He's seen it in his dreams. In the fire that follows him everywhere, in the memories that aren't his, in the long, cold logic of a man who understood structures better than he ever understood people. Project. He doesn't project a weapon this time. He projects a key. It's not a real thing. It's not something that exists in the world. But in his mind, he can see the seal network like a lock, complex, layered, designed to protect this place from exactly this kind of attack. And he can see the one point where it's already breaking. He just needs to help it along. The key appears in his hand. It's not metal, it's light, chakra, pure structure, It fits into the seal network like it was always meant to be there. And he turns it. The floor explodes. When Kushina Uzumaki reaches the temple, there's nothing left. That's not true. There's rubble. There's fire. There's the smell of blood and burning stone and something else. Something that makes her stomach clench even after everything she's already seen tonight. She's 12 years old. She's not supposed to be here. She's supposed to be in Konoha, safe behind walls that don't break, training to be a kunoichi under teachers who don't die. But the messenger hawk came 3 hours ago, and she was the closest, and the Uzumaki blood in her veins wouldn't let her stay away. Her village is burning. Her family is burning. She tears through the rubble with hands that are glowing red, chains forming from her chakra, tearing apart stone and wood and whatever else is in her way. The seal masters taught her to control this power, to use it for binding and defense, but right now she doesn't care. She just needs to get through. Shiro. She doesn't know why she's calling for him. He's not her child. He's not even her cousin, really, some distant branch of the family, a boy with red hair that's too dark and chakra that's never worked and a mother who died 2 years ago. She's barely spoken to him. She's barely thought about him. But he's in there. She knows he's in there. The temple was where they put the children who couldn't fight, the ones too young or too weak or too broken to be on the walls. And the walls fell an hour ago. Shiro. Her chains tear through the last of the rubble. The room beneath is dark, filled with dust and smoke, and for a moment she can't see anything. Then the smoke shifts, and she sees a sword. It's embedded in the floor, half melted, its edge still glowing faintly with heat. It's not a real weapon, she can tell that much. It's something else. Something that shouldn't exist. And next to it, curled against the wall like a child trying to make himself small, is Shiro. He's not moving. For one terrible moment, she thinks he's dead. His clothes are burned, his face is covered in ash and blood, his arms, she can see his arms from here, and they're wrong, the skin too pale, the veins standing out black against the flesh like something out of a medical text. Then he coughs. The sound is small. Wet. It's the sound of a child who's been breathing smoke for too long, who's pushed too far, who's done something that children aren't supposed to do. Kushina drops to her knees beside him. Her hands that can tear through stone, that can summon chains strong enough to bind tailed beasts, are shaking. Shiro. Hey! Shiro! His eyes open. They're not Uzumaki eyes. The Uzumaki have red hair and blue or gray eyes, usually. His are different. Gold. Almost amber. The color of something that's been burned clean. He looks at her. And for a second, just a second, she doesn't see a 6-year-old boy who's never been able to make a basic clone. She sees something else. Something older. Something that's been waiting in the dark for a very, very long time. The others, he says. His voice is a whisper. Did they? I don't know. I don't. She cuts herself off. She's crying. She didn't realize she was crying. I came as fast as I could. The whole village is. He nods. It's not the nod of a child who understands what she's saying. It's the nod of someone who already knew. Someone who saw this coming before it happened. The Eastern Gate, he says. They came through the Eastern Gate first. Broke the barrier with a specialized jutsu, something that overloaded the third layer seals. They knew exactly where to hit. Kushina stares at him. How do you? I saw it. His eyes drift closed. I see everything. His hand moves. Just a twitch, really, his fingers curling toward his palm. And in the space between heartbeats, something shifts in the air around them. A pressure. A presence. Then it's gone. And Shiro Uzumaki, 6 years old, who has never been able to mold chakra or perform a single jutsu, goes limp in her arms. She carries him out of the temple. The village is still burning. The sounds of fighting have moved on, toward the center, toward the administrative buildings, toward the places where the Uzumaki elders are making their last stand. She should go there. She should fight. She should. She looks down at the boy in her arms. His face is slack. Unconscious. But his hands are still twitching, fingers moving like he's reaching for something she can't see. And in the spaces between his fingers, there's something wrong with the light. She doesn't understand what happened here. She doesn't understand how a 6-year-old with broken chakra could be alive in the middle of a collapsed building while the men who came to kill children are buried in the rubble around him. She doesn't understand the sword she saw in the floor. Or the way he looked at her when he opened his eyes. Or the words he said before he passed out. I see everything. She doesn't understand. But she knows one thing. The Uzumaki clan is dying tonight. Her people, her family, her home, all of it is burning. And when the sun comes up, there won't be a Yuzushi Ogakure anymore. But there will be him. There will be this boy with the wrong-colored eyes and the broken chakra and the impossible sword. There will be Shiro. And something tells her, something deep and cold and certain, that the world hasn't seen the last of what happened in that temple tonight. The sun rises over the ruins of Yuzushi Ogakure. Kushina sits on a hillside outside the village, watching the smoke rise. Shiro is beside her, still unconscious, wrapped in her coat. His breathing is steady now, but his skin is too pale, his veins still too visible, and every few minutes his fingers twitch like he's reaching for something. Behind them, the village burns. The fighting ended an hour ago. The attackers, she still doesn't know who they were, what village they came from, why they wanted the Uzumaki dead, have pulled back. Not because they were defeated. Because there was nothing left to take. The temple is gone. The administrative buildings are gone. The seal workshops that made Yuzushi Ogakure famous, that produced barriers and containment arrays that no other village could match, all of it is gone. And the people. Kushina doesn't let herself think about the people. She thinks about the boy beside her instead. She thinks about the sword she found in the rubble. It was gone by the time she carried Shiro out, dissolved, maybe, or broken, or something else she doesn't have words for. But she saw it. She felt it. And she felt the way the room had shifted when Shiro did whatever he did to the seal network. He should be dead. That's the simple truth. A 6-year-old with broken chakra, in the middle of a collapsed building, with enemy shinobi everywhere? He should be dead a dozen times over. But he's not. And the men who came to kill the children in that temple? They are. Kushina looks down at the boy's face. In sleep, he looks young. Younger than 6, maybe? His features are soft, unformed, the kind of face that hasn't decided what it wants to be when it grows up. But his hands are calloused. She noticed it when she carried him out. The palms of his hands, the pads of his fingers, calloused. Not the calluses of a child who plays too hard or helps with chores around the village. These are different. Older. The calluses of someone who's held things he shouldn't have. Someone who's held swords. Who are you? She whispers. He doesn't answer. Of course he doesn't. He's unconscious, maybe dying, his body broken by something she doesn't understand. But his fingers twitch. And in the space between one breath and the next, Kushina feels something cold settle in her chest. Not fear. Recognition. Because she's seen those hands before. Not in this life. Not in this world. But in the way he moved when he threw that kunai, the angle, the trajectory, the complete disregard for his own safety, there was something that reminded her of stories. Stories her grandmother told her, late at night, when the other children were asleep. Stories about heroes. About men who fought impossible battles with impossible weapons. About the price they paid. She looks at the smoke rising from her village. She looks at the boy beside her. And she makes a decision. When they reach Konoha, if they reach Konoha, she's going to find out what happened in that temple. She's going to find out what Shiro Uzumaki really is. But right now, there's only one thing she needs to know. Whatever you are, she says quietly. Whatever you did in there, thank you. The sun rises higher. The smoke continues to rise. And Shiro Uzumaki, 6 years old, sleeps on. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Weight of Blades. 4 years later, Shiro Uzumaki still can't make a clone. It's not for lack of trying. He's tried everything, every meditation technique the Uzumaki healers taught him, every chakra control exercise Kushina forced on him, every method of molding and shaping the energy that sits in his gut like a stone that won't move. He's tried forcing it. He's tried coaxing it. He's tried ignoring it, hoping it would sort itself out. Nothing works. His chakra is a knot. A tangle. A thing that was never meant to flow through his body like it flows through everyone else's. The healers in Konoha, because he's in Konoha now, has been for 4 years, ever since Kushina carried him out of the burning ruins and brought him to the village her family chose, have given up trying to fix it. It's like trying to pour water through a cracked cup, one of them told Kushina, in a voice that wasn't quiet enough. He can hold some of it, but most of it leaks. And what's left? She'd shaken her head. Whatever he's doing with it, it's not standard chakra use. Shiro knows what he's doing with it. He just can't tell anyone. The sword appears in his hand without thinking. It's a practice blade, short, balanced for a child, the kind of thing the Konoha Academy gives to its youngest students. He's been stealing looks at it for weeks, memorizing its structure, its weight, the way the metal folds at the edge. Now, alone in Kushina's apartment, while she's out on a mission, he lets it form. It takes 3 seconds. That's fast, faster than it used to be. When he first started practicing, after Yuzushi Ogakure, it took minutes just to hold the image in his mind. Now it's almost automatic. He thinks blade and his circuits, the things inside him that aren't chakra, that he still doesn't fully understand, light up like a forge. The sword is solid in his hand. Real. Or real enough. He swings it once, twice, testing the balance. It's good. Better than the original, maybe. He's corrected for the slight warp in the blade, the uneven temper near the hilt. When he traced it, he saw every flaw in the original. He could have fixed them all. He didn't. The point of this exercise isn't perfection. The point is control. Understanding. Learning to hold the image in his mind without letting it consume him. Because when he traced the sword in the temple, when he was 6 years old and dying and desperate, he didn't have control. He had need. And the thing that answered wasn't entirely him. He still dreams about it sometimes. The hill. The swords. The sky that's always red, no matter what time of day it is. There's a figure there, sometimes, a man with his face and not his face, with arms that are scarred and hands that are empty and eyes that look at Shiro like they're looking at a ghost. You'll regret this path, the man says. Or doesn't say. It's hard to tell, in dreams. Maybe, Shiro answers every time. But I won't regret saving them. The sword dissolves. Shiro lets it go, feeling the image fragment in his mind like shattering glass. The pieces scatter, and for a moment he's tempted to catch them, to hold on to the blueprint a little longer. No. He's learned. Pushing too hard means pain. Pushing past pain means damage. And damage. He looks at his hands. The calluses are still there, for years later. So are the scars. Small ones, most of them. The kind that come from holding things that aren't meant to be held. But there are others. Deeper ones. The kind that come from circuits burning too hot, from holding projections too long, from trying to be something he's not ready to be. He's 10 years old. He's been practicing for 4 years. And he's barely scratched the surface of what he can do. The knock at the door comes at noon. Shiro knows who it is before he opens it. He's been tracking her chakra signature since she entered the village, a habit he's developed over the years, one of the few uses he's found for his broken energy. He can't mold it into jutsu, can't shape it into attacks or defenses. But he can sense it. Feel it in the air like pressure changes before a storm. Hey! Kushina pushes past him without waiting for an invitation, dumping a mission pack on the table. You eat? Hours ago. Eat again. She's already moving through the kitchen, pulling out rice and vegetables, her movements efficient and practiced. She's 16 now, taller than she was when she carried him out of the ruins, stronger, with the same red hair and fierce eyes that mark her as Uzumaki no matter where she goes. She's also exhausted. Shiro sees it in the way she moves. The slight hesitation in her steps. The way her hands tremble when she reaches for a knife. The chakra signature that's dimmer than it should be, drained from whatever mission she just completed. Kushina. You're hurt. She stops. For a second, her hand goes to her side, to a spot just below her ribs, where her chakra is flickering like a candle in wind. It's nothing. She picks up the knife again. Just a graze. The medics. Let me see. He's already moving. She tries to wave him off, but he's learned how to read her over the years. The way her jaw tightens when she's hiding pain. The way her eyes go flat when she's trying to pretend she's fine. He pulls up her shirt before she can stop him. The wound is small. A kunai slash, maybe, or a shallow sword cut. But it's not healing. The edges are red, inflamed, and there's something dark in the center, something that shouldn't be there. Poison, he says. It's fine. The medics gave me an antidote. It's not working. He doesn't know how he knows that. But he looks at the wound, and he sees it. The way the poison has spread beyond the cut, threading through her chakra network like roots through soil. The way her body is fighting it, and losing. Shiro. Stay still. He closes his eyes. And he traces. Not a weapon this time. Something smaller. Something simpler. He's been practicing this for months, projecting medical tools, scalpels and forceps and things that don't exist in this world, things that came from dreams he doesn't fully remember. The probe appears in his hand. It's thin, almost invisible, a needle of solidified chakra that shouldn't exist. He presses it to the wound. Kushina gasps. What? Hold still. He's not using the probe to cut. He's using it to see. The poison in her system is a structure, a complex one, designed to resist normal treatment. But like any structure, it has weak points. Gaps in its molecular lattice. Places where it connects to her chakra network. He finds one. And he pushes. The probe dissolves. The poison, the dark threads running through Kushina's chakra, starts to break apart. Not quickly. Not easily. But it's breaking. The structure is collapsing, fragmenting into pieces that her body can process and expel. When he opens his eyes, Kushina is staring at him. Her face is pale. Not from the poison, from something else. What? She says slowly. Was that? Shiro looks at the probe in his hand. It's already starting to dissolve, the image in his mind fading now that the work is done. Medicine, he says. That's not medicine. Her voice is tight. I've seen medical ninjutsu. I've seen seals. I've never seen anything like that. He doesn't answer. He can't. Because the truth is, he doesn't fully understand what he just did. He saw the poison, saw its structure, and he unmade it. Like pulling threads from a tapestry. Like dismantling a sword he traced, letting the image dissolve back into nothing. But it cost him. He can feel it now, the ache behind his eyes, the tremor in his hands, the familiar burn of circuits pushed too far. He projected a probe, held the image for 30 seconds, and used it to do something that shouldn't be possible. He's tired. And Kushina is still staring at him. The temple, she says quietly. That night. When I found you. Kushina. There was a sword in the floor. A sword that shouldn't exist. And the men who came to kill the children, they were buried under the rubble. The whole building collapsed, but you were alive. Only you were alive. She takes a step toward him. I've been watching you for 4 years, Shiro. I've seen the way you look at things. The way you see things that aren't there. The way your hands move when you think no one's watching. Another step. I'm not going to tell anyone. He looks up at that. Really looks. Because he's heard those words before, in dreams, in memories that aren't his. I'm not going to tell anyone. It's what people say when they're about to demand answers they don't have the right to ask for. But Kushina's face isn't demanding. It's worried. I'm not going to tell anyone, she repeats. But I need to know what you are. What you can do. Because whatever's coming. She stops. Swallows. Whatever happened to Yuzushi Ogakure, whatever's happening in the world right now, I need to know if you can protect yourself. I can. You're 10 years old. I'm 10 years old, and I traced a sword that shouldn't exist when I was 6, and I just pulled poison out of your body with something that wasn't chakra. He meets her eyes. I can protect myself. That's not what I asked? She's right. She asked if he could protect himself? But they both know that's not what she meant. The training ground is empty. It's late, past midnight, the moon high and cold over Konoha. The village is quiet, the kind of quiet that comes after a long day, when everyone is home and asleep and the only sounds are the wind and the distant rush of the river. Shiro stands in the center of the clearing, a practice sword in each hand. They're not real. They're projections, the same basic blade, traced twice, held in both hands. The weight is familiar now, the balance almost automatic. He swings them in sequence, feeling the air part around the edges, feeling the way his body moves to accommodate the weapons. It's not enough. He knows it's not enough. He's been training for 4 years. He's traced hundreds of weapons, studied their structures, learned their histories. But he's still 10 years old. He's still small. He's still using chakra that doesn't work and circuits that burn him every time he pushes too hard. And he's still dreaming about the hill. He stops swinging. The swords dissolve. He lets them go, feeling the images fade, feeling the familiar ache spread through his circuits. He's pushed himself tonight, too far maybe. But he needed to. After what happened with Kushina, after the way she looked at him. You're doing it wrong. The voice comes from behind him. Shiro spins, a new sword forming in his hand before he's even thought about it. The blade is short, single-edged, balanced for throwing, the same kunai he traced in the temple 4 years ago, the one that missed. The clearing is empty. No, not empty. There's a figure standing at the edge of the trees. A man tall, with dark hair and pale skin. He's wearing something that might be armor, might be cloth. It's hard to tell in the moonlight. But Shiro can see his face. It's his face. Older. Harder. Scarred in ways that haven't happened yet. But the same face. The same eyes. The same hands calloused from holding things that shouldn't exist. You're pushing too hard, the man says. Tracing 2 weapons at once when you can barely hold one. Practicing forms you don't understand. Trying to be something you're not. Shiro's hand tightens on the kunai. Who are you? The man smiles. It's not a nice smile. You know who I am. He steps forward, out of the shadows. The moonlight catches his face, his arms, the scars that cover them like a map of suffering. You've been dreaming about me for 4 years. Ever since the temple. Shiro's heart is pounding. His circuits are burning. The kunai in his hand is solid, real enough to cut, but he knows, that if this man wanted to hurt him, a projected weapon wouldn't stop him. You're Archer, he says. The word comes from somewhere deep. From the dreams. From the Hill of Swords, the red sky, the voice that's been warning him since he was 6 years old. The man's smile fades. Archer, he repeats. That's what they called me. In the end. When there was nothing left to call myself. He stops a few feet away. Close enough to touch. Close enough to kill. Close enough to see. You're going to destroy yourself, Shiro. His voice is quiet. Almost gentle. The path you're on, the weapons you're making, the things you're trying to become, it doesn't lead where you think it does. You don't know what I'm trying to become. I know exactly what you're trying to become. The man's eyes are the same gold as Shiro's. The same color that isn't Uzumaki. The same color as something that's been burned clean. I was you. Once. Before the dream started. Before the hill. Before I learned what it really costs to be a hero. Shiro's hand is shaking. He doesn't know if it's fear or exhaustion or the strain of holding the projection. Maybe all of it. I'm not trying to be a hero, he says. I'm trying to protect people. That's the same thing. It's not. The man, Archer, laughs. It's a dry sound, hollow, like wind through bones. You really believe that? After everything that happened in Yuzushi Ogakure? After what you did to those men? You really think you can protect people without becoming something you'll hate? Shiro looks at the kunai in his hand. He thinks about the temple. The men who came to kill the children. The way he threw the first sword, not to hurt, just to distract. The way he threw the second, not to kill, just to buy time. He thinks about the seal network. The way he turned it into a weapon. The way it collapsed, burying the men who would have killed him and the other children. He doesn't know if they died. He's never asked? The people I saved, he says slowly, are alive. The children who were in that room with me, they got out. They made it to the tunnels. I saw them. You saw them get out. You didn't see what happened after. I know. He meets Archer's eyes. But I know they had a chance. Because of what I did. And what about the men you buried? Shiro's hand tightens on the kunai. What about them? He expects Archer to be angry. To mock him. To tell him that a hero doesn't kill, that a hero saves everyone, that the path he's on leads only to guilt and regret and a hill covered in swords. But Archer just looks at him. For a long moment, neither of them speaks. The wind moves through the trees. The moon slides behind a cloud. And in the darkness, Shiro can feel the man's presence like a weight, like the weight of all the years he hasn't lived yet, all the choices he hasn't made. You're going to regret this, Archer says finally. The things you're going to do. The things you're going to become. You're going to look back at yourself now and wonder how you ever thought this was worth it. Maybe. Shiro lets the kunai dissolve. The image fades, and with it, the ache in his circuits. But I'd rather regret protecting people than regret watching them die. Archer's face does something complicated. For a second, just a second, he looks almost sad. You really are me, he says quietly. That's what I said. Once. Before I learned what it really costs. He turns away. Train harder, he says over his shoulder. If you're going to do this, if you're really going to walk this path, train harder. Because what's coming won't wait for you to be ready. He steps into the trees. And he's gone. Shiro stands in the clearing for a long time after, staring at the place where the man was. His hands are empty. His circuits are quiet. And somewhere in his chest, where his chakra sits like a stone that won't move, he feels something shift. Fear. Not of Archer. Not of the future. Fear that the man was right. When he gets back to the apartment, Kushina is waiting. She's sitting at the kitchen table, a cup of tea in front of her that's gone cold. Her wound is healing now, the poison gone, her chakra slowly returning to normal. But she doesn't look relieved. She looks like she's been waiting. You're back, she says. You should be sleeping. So should you. She pushes the cold tea aside. Sit down. He sits. For a moment, neither of them speaks. Shiro can feel the weight of the night on him, the training, the projection, the conversation with a man who might be himself from another life. His circuits are aching. His hands are shaking. And Kushina is looking at him like she knows. The night Yuzushi fell, she says quietly, I found you in the temple. You were the only one alive. The only one. She pauses. I never asked what happened. I never asked how a 6-year-old with broken chakra survived a collapsed building while trained shinobi didn't. Shiro doesn't answer. I'm asking now. He looks at his hands. The calluses. The scars. The hands of a child who's held things he shouldn't. I can make things, he says. Weapons. Tools. Things that aren't real. I can look at something and understand its structure, every part of it, every flaw, every strength. And I can make a copy. A projection. Kushina's face doesn't change. It's not chakra, he continues. I mean, it uses chakra, some of it. But mostly it's something else. Something I don't fully understand. Circuits, I think. Magic circuits. He stops. He's never said that out loud before. Magic. It sounds wrong. It sounds like something from a story, something that doesn't belong in a world of shinobi and chakra and villages that burn in the night. But it's the truth. You're a sorcerer, Kushina says. Not a question. I don't know what I am. She's quiet for a long moment. Then she reaches across the table and takes his hands, the scarred hands, the shaking hands, the hands that can create things that shouldn't exist. You're an Uzumaki, she says. Whatever else you are, whatever you can do, you're family. And family protects each other. She squeezes his hands. I'm not going to tell anyone. Not yet. But you need to be careful. If the wrong people find out about this. She stops. Her face tightens. The people who attacked Yuzushi, they were looking for something. The SEAL network, the old techniques, the things our clan could do that no one else could. If they find out about you. They won't. How do you know? He thinks about Archer. About the warning. About the future that's coming, the war that's building, the things he's going to have to do. Because I'm going to make sure of it. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3, The Forge of Revolution. 3 years pass. Shiro Uzumaki is 13 years old, and he has not made a single friend in Konoha. This is not an accident. Friends are complications. Friends are people who notice things, the way he spends his nights in training grounds, the way his hands move when he thinks no one's watching, the way he flinches when someone mentions Yuzushi. Friends are people who ask questions he can't answer. But there's another reason, too. A deeper one. He doesn't want to get close to people he might have to lose. The thought surfaces unbidden as he stands on the roof of the Konoha Academy, watching the sun set behind the Hokage monument. Below him, students are leaving for the day, laughing, talking, making plans for the evening. Normal kids. Kids who don't dream about hills of swords and men with his face. He used to be one of them. Before the dreams. Before the temple. Before he learned what it really meant to project. Now he's something else. You're brooding again. He doesn't turn. He's learned to recognize Kushina's chakra signature, the bright, fierce pulse of it, like a flame that never goes out. She lands on the roof beside him, a bag of groceries in one arm, her hair loose around her shoulders. I'm thinking, he says. That's what I said. She settles beside him, pulling out an apple and tossing it to him. He catches it without looking. You've been doing a lot of thinking lately. More than usual. I've been doing a lot of things lately. It's true. In the 3 years since Archer first appeared to him, Shiro has been training. Relentlessly. He's pushed his tracing further than he thought possible, dozens of weapons, hundreds of projections. He's learned to hold images longer, to trace faster, to push through the pain that comes when his circuits burn too hot. He's learned to fight. Not the way shinobi fight. He can't make clones or substitutions. He can't walk on water or run up walls. His chakra is still a tangled knot, still useless for anything but sensing. But he can project. And he can use what he projects. He's developed a style. It's not elegant. It's not traditional. It's the style of a boy who knows he can't win a straight fight, who knows that any real shinobi could kill him before he finished tracing a weapon. So he doesn't fight fair. He fights smart. His weapons appear in his hands already moving. He traces blades mid-swing, catches opponents off guard with weapons that shouldn't exist. He uses short swords, daggers, weapons designed for close quarters, for speed over power. He's learned to throw, really throw, not like the desperate flailing of a 6-year-old in a burning temple. He's still not good. But he's better. And it's not enough. The enemy forces are moving again, he says. Kushina goes still beside him. I've been tracking them. Through reports, through chakra signatures I've learned to read from a distance. They're massing near the border. Not Kumo this time. IWA. Kushina's face tightens. You're sure? The patterns are the same as 4 years ago. The same build-up. The same movements. They're going to hit the Land of Fire's outer territories first. Soft targets. Villages that don't have the protection of a major shinobi force. He doesn't say Yuzushi Ogakure. He doesn't have to. That's not your problem, Kushina says quietly. You're 13 years old. You're not a shinobi. You're not. I'm an Uzumaki. He meets her eyes. Our clan was destroyed because no one came to help us. Because we were isolated. Because we didn't have allies who would fight for us. He looks down at his hands. I'm not going to let that happen to anyone else. Shiro. I'm not going to fight in the war. The words come out harder than he intended. I can't. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a weapon. But I can do something else. Something that might actually make a difference. Kushina is quiet. He takes a breath. The villages that are going to be hit, they're small. Agricultural communities. Fishing villages. Places with no shinobi protection. When the enemy comes, they'll have nothing. No defenses. No training. No chance. So what can you do? You can't be everywhere. You can't protect everyone. No. He looks at the academy below them. At the students leaving for the day. At the teachers who've given up on him, who've written him off as a failure. But I can give them the tools to protect themselves. The idea comes to him in pieces. It starts with a seal. The Uzumaki were masters of sealing. Their techniques were legendary. Barriers that could contain tailed beasts, arrays that could level mountains, formulas that could transport armies across continents. Most of that knowledge died with Yuzushi Ogakure. But not all of it. Kushina has been teaching him. Slowly, carefully, passing on the techniques her grandmother taught her, the secrets that were supposed to be preserved for the next generation of Uzumaki seal masters. Shiro is not a seal master. But he understands structures. The seals the Uzumaki used are like blueprints. Complex, layered, designed to channel chakra in specific patterns to achieve specific effects. He can't create new seals from scratch, not yet. But he can see how they work. He can see the logic behind them, the way each line and symbol connects to the next. And he can see how to improve them. The first weapon he creates is simple. It's a tag. Paper, ink, a seal pattern that's been used for centuries to store chakra for later use. Every shinobi carries them, explosive tags, storage seals, communication arrays. Standard issue. Nothing special. Shiro's version is different. He's not just storing chakra. He's storing structure. The seal on the tag is the same as the original. But the ink is different. He's infused it with something else, a trace of the projection technique, a fragment of the image that lives in his mind when he traces a weapon. The result is a tag that doesn't just explode. It explodes with intent. He tests it in the training ground, late at night, when no one can see. He activates the tag, throws it at a practice dummy, and watches. The explosion is normal, a burst of chakra, a wave of heat, the kind of thing any shinobi could produce. But inside the explosion, something else happens. Blades. Dozens of them. Small, sharp, formed from the chakra of the explosion itself. They tear through the practice dummy, shredding it to pieces, embedding themselves in the trees behind it. Shiro stares at the destruction. His circuits are burning. The tag took more out of him than he expected, more than a normal projection, more than anything he's done before. But it worked. It worked. He looks at the shredded dummy. At the blades still embedded in the trees, already starting to dissolve back into nothing. And he smiles. It's not a happy smile. It's the smile of a boy who's just realized that the things he can do, the things he's been hiding, the things that make him different, the things that scare him, might be exactly what the world needs. The next 3 months are a blur. Shiro works constantly. He barely sleeps. He barely eats. His circuits are pushed to their limit every day, then past it, then past that. He traces weapons, studies their structures, breaks them down into components he can store in seals. He creates an arsenal. Not for himself. For people who can't fight. The first weapon is the tag he tested. He refines it, improves it, finds ways to make it more efficient. The final version can be activated by anyone with even the smallest amount of chakra. It produces a targeted burst of projected blades, short range, deadly, enough to kill a trained shinobi if they're caught off guard. It's a weapon for civilians. He calls it the Blade Seal. The second weapon is more complex. It's a tube, metal, reinforced, with a seal at the base. He traces it carefully, studying the structure of the weapon he's imagining, the weapon that doesn't exist yet. He's never seen a gun. But he's dreamed about them. In his dreams, the ones that aren't about the hill of swords, there are weapons that use fire and pressure to propel small projectiles at incredible speeds. They're primitive compared to the noble phantasms he traces, but they're effective. And they don't require chakra to use. He adapts the design. The seal at the base of the tube compresses air when activated. The tube itself is traced from steel, reinforced with chakra-conductive materials that don't exist in this world. The projectiles are small, sharp, designed to pierce flesh and armor. He tested in the training ground. The first shot goes wide, tearing through a tree instead of the practice dummy. The second shot hits the dummy in the shoulder, but doesn't penetrate deep enough to kill. The third shot hits the dummy in the chest. The projectile goes through, embedding itself in the ground behind it. Shiro lowers the weapon. His hands are shaking. His circuits are screaming. But he's smiling again. He doesn't tell Kushina about the weapons. Not because he doesn't trust her. Because he knows what she'll say. She'll tell him he's too young. She'll tell him he's not responsible for the world. She'll tell him that weapons aren't the answer, that there has to be another way. And she'd be right. But she wasn't in the temple. She didn't see the men who came to kill children. She didn't feel the fire. She didn't stand in a room full of people who were going to die because there was no one to protect them. Shiro was there. He remembers. And he knows that sometimes, weapons are the answer. Not because they're good. Not because he wants to use them. But because without them, people die. People like the children in the temple. People like Kushina, who almost died from a poisoned wound that shouldn't have been fatal. He's not trying to be a hero. He's trying to give people the tools to save themselves. The third weapon is the hardest. It's not a weapon, really. It's armor. Lightweight, flexible, designed to be worn under clothing. He traces it from materials that don't exist in this world, the same chakra-conductive alloys that he uses in his weapons, woven into threads that can deflect blades and absorb impacts. It's not perfect. A direct hit from a powerful jutsu would still kill the wearer. But it would give them a chance. A chance to run, to hide, to fight back. A chance to survive. He traces the armor piece by piece, studying the structure of each component, refining it until it's as efficient as he can make it. The process takes weeks. His circuits are damaged by the end of it, more damaged than they've ever been. He can barely move his hands without pain. But he has 3 weapons. 3 tools that could save lives. 3 things that shouldn't exist. He stores them in seals, tucked away in his room, hidden from the world. And he waits. The enemy comes in the spring. Shiro has been tracking their movements for months. He knows when they'll cross the border, knows which villages they'll hit first, knows the exact composition of the forces that are coming. He tells Kushina. She tells the Hokage. The Hokage sends shinobi to reinforce the border. Good shinobi. Strong shinobi. The kind of shinobi who can protect the villages that are at risk. But there are too many villages. Too much territory to cover. And the shinobi can't be everywhere. So Shiro goes where they can't. The village is called Yamagata. A farming community in the eastern reaches of the Land of Fire, close enough to the border to be vulnerable, far enough from the major trade routes to be forgotten. It has no shinobi. No walls. No defenses. When Shiro arrives, the harvest is just beginning. The fields are full of workers, the storehouses full of grain. It's the kind of place that war destroys, not because it's important, but because it's there. He's been here before. Not in this life. In his dreams. In the memories that aren't his. He stood in villages like this, watched them burn, felt the heat of the flames on his face. Not this time. He finds the village elder, an old woman with weathered hands and sharp eyes. She looks at him, 13 years old, no headband, no weapons, and doesn't dismiss him. "You're the one they sent?" she asks. "No one sent me." Her eyes narrow. "Then why are you here?" He looks at the village. At the fields, the houses, the people going about their lives. At the chakra signatures he can feel on the horizon, moving closer every day. "Because you're going to need help," he says. He has 3 days. The enemy force is small, a scouting party, maybe, or a raiding group looking for supplies. 20 shinobi, all of them trained, all of them ready to kill. Against a village of farmers who've never held a weapon in their lives. The odds are impossible. But Shiro has been preparing for this moment for 3 years. He spends the first day with the village elder, explaining his plan. She listens without interrupting, her face unreadable. When he's finished, she's quiet for a long moment. "You're asking us to fight," she says. "I'm asking you to survive." "And if we don't want to fight? If we'd rather run, hide, wait for your shinobi to come?" "They won't come in time." He says it without cruelty. "It's just a fact. The main force is days away. These raiders will be here tomorrow night. If you run, they'll chase you. If you hide, they'll find you. The only way to survive is to make them think you're not worth the cost." She looks at him for a long moment. Then she nods. "Show me what you've made." He trains them in 1 day. It's not enough time. It will never be enough time. But he doesn't need them to be soldiers. He just needs them to be brave. The blade seals are the easiest to teach. Anyone with chakra can activate them, and in this village, like most villages in the Land of Fire, almost everyone has at least a little. Not enough for jutsu. Enough for this. He shows them how to hold the seals, how to activate them, how to throw them where they'll do the most damage. They practice on dummies he builds from wood and straw. The first few throws are wild. The tags go everywhere, exploding in trees and fields and once, memorably, in a chicken coop. But by the end of the day, most of them can hit a target at 10 paces. It's not enough. But it's something. The rifles are harder. The villagers have never seen anything like them, weapons that fire without chakra, without hand seals, without any of the tools they've been taught to fear. Shiro has to demonstrate 3 times before anyone is willing to touch one. He shows them how to load, how to aim, how to fire. He shows them how the recoil will feel, how to brace against it. He shows them how to clean the weapons, how to maintain them, how to fix them when they break. By the end of the day, 12 villagers can fire accurately. Another 20 can at least point in the right direction. It's not enough. But it's something. The armor he gives to the ones who will be on the front lines. The elder son, a man named Takashi who fought in the last war. 3 other veterans who still remember how to hold a formation. And the young ones, the ones who look at Shiro with fear and hope and something that might be faith. He doesn't tell them the armor is experimental. He doesn't tell them it's never been tested against a real attack. He doesn't tell them that if it fails, they'll die. They already know. The raiders come at dusk. Shiro feels them before he sees them, 20 chakra signatures, moving fast, spreading out to surround the village. They're not trying to be subtle. They don't need to be. This is a farming village. What could it possibly do to hurt them? He watches from the roof of the village's largest storehouse. His hands are steady. His circuits are quiet. In his mind, he's tracing every weapon he's ever made, ready to project them at a moment's notice. The villagers are in position. The blade seals are ready. The rifles are loaded. And the raiders are coming. The first one comes over the eastern wall, a young man, maybe 20, with a Kumo headband and a sword that's seen better days. He lands in the village square, looking around for targets, for anything worth taking. He doesn't see the girl behind him. She's 16. Her name is Hannah. She's been training with the rifles for 1 day. Her hands are shaking. Her breath is coming in short, sharp gasps. But she raises the weapon. She aims. And when the raider turns, she pulls the trigger. The shot is loud. louder than anything Shiro imagined when he was testing the weapon. It echoes off the walls, off the houses, off the storehouse roof. For a moment, the world is nothing but sound. Then the raider falls. He doesn't scream. He doesn't cry out. He just drops, a hole in his chest, blood pooling on the packed earth of the square. Hannah stares at the body. She's not shaking anymore. More raiders are coming. They've heard the shot, seen their comrade fall, and they're not confused anymore. They're angry. Shiro moves. He drops from the roof, a blade forming in each hand before he hits the ground. The first raider, a woman with a tanto and a mask, sees him coming and tries to block. She's fast. He's faster. His projected sword slides past her guard, cuts through her armor, bites deep into her side. She gasps, stumbles, and before she can recover, he's already moving to the next target. He doesn't think about what he's doing. If he thinks, he'll hesitate. If he hesitates, people die. So he lets his body move, lets his tracing guide his hands, lets the weapons flow from his mind to his grip like water from a spring. He's not a warrior. He's not a hero. He's a boy with too many swords and not enough time. The raiders are adapting. They've seen what he can do, and they're not making the mistake of underestimating him. They're working together, flanking him, forcing him to split his attention. He can't keep this up. He knows he can't. His circuits are burning, his hands are shaking, and there are still 17 raiders in the village. But he doesn't need to beat them. He just needs to hold them. The villagers open fire. The rifles are clumsy. The shooters are untrained. Most of the shots go wide, tearing into buildings, kicking up dust, doing nothing but noise. But some of them hit. Another raider falls. Then another. The survivors are scattering, trying to find cover, trying to figure out where the attacks are coming from. And then the blade seals activate. Shiro taught the villagers to use them in sequence. Not all at once, that would waste the element of surprise. One here, one there, unpredictable, impossible to track. The first tag goes off behind a group of raiders taking cover behind a cart. The explosion isn't large, but the blades inside it are. 3 raiders go down, torn apart by metal that shouldn't exist. The second tag goes off near the well, catching a raider who thought he was safe. The third takes out 2 more near the eastern gate. The survivors are panicking now. They came here to raid a farming village, not to fight a war. They're not ready for this. They're not prepared to die. Shiro is. He cuts down another raider, a man his father's age, maybe, with gray in his hair and fear in his eyes. The sword feels wrong in his hands. Too heavy. Too real. He doesn't stop. He can't. When it's over, Shiro stands in the village square. His clothes are torn. His arms are bleeding from a dozen cuts he doesn't remember receiving. His circuits are so damaged he can barely stand. Around him, 18 raiders are dead. 2 more fled when they saw their comrades fall. The villagers are staring at him. Some of them are crying. Some of them are cheering. Some of them are just standing there, too shocked to move. Hannah is still holding her rifle. She's not crying. She's not cheering. She's looking at the body of the first raider she killed, and her face is very, very pale. Shiro walks over to her. "You did good," he says. She looks up at him. "I killed him." "I know." I didn't." She stops. Swallows. "Is this what it's always like?" Shiro looks at the bodies. At the blood. At the village that's still standing, the people who are still alive, the harvest that won't be taken. "No," he says. "Sometimes it's worse." He walks away. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4, The Failed Ones. 3 months after Yamagata, Shiro returns to Konoha. He's different. The villagers saw it, the way he moved, the way he fought, the way he looked at the bodies after it was over. He's always been quiet, always kept to himself, but now there's something else. Something harder. Kushina sees it too. "You're not sleeping," she says. It's not a question. "I'm sleeping." "You're not sleeping enough." She's sitting on his bed, watching him pack his supplies. Seals, weapons, tools, all the things he's been creating in secret for the past year. "I've been watching you. You come back from these trips, and you don't rest. You just keep working." "I have work to do." "You're 13 years old." He stops packing. Turns to face her. "You've said that before?" "Because it keeps being true." She stands up. Shiro, I know what you're doing. I know about Yamagata. I know about the other villages you've been visiting. I know about the weapons you've been making. He doesn't ask how she knows. Kushina is an Uzumaki. She's smarter than she pretends to be, more observant than she lets on. You're going to tell me to stop, he says. No. She crosses her arms. I'm going to tell you that you can't do this alone. He blinks. What? You heard me. She sits back down on the bed, pulling him down beside her. You're one person, Shiro. One person with a power that's killing you every time you use it. You can't protect every village. You can't save everyone. And if you keep trying, you're going to burn out. What do you want me to do? Just let them die? No. I want you to let people help you. He stares at her. I've been watching you for years, she continues. I've seen what you can do. But I've also seen what you can't do. You can't be everywhere. You can't fight everyone. And you can't keep pushing yourself like this without breaking. So what's your solution? She smiles. It's not a nice smile. It's the smile of a woman who's been planning something for a very long time. There are people in this village, she says, who aren't like the other shinobi. People who've been left behind. Forgotten. Academy dropouts. Civilian-born kids who couldn't make it. People who were told they weren't good enough. She leans in. They're like you, Shiro. People with something to prove. People who want to protect others, but don't have the power to do it. He understands. You want me to train them? I want you to give them the same chance you gave the villagers in Yamagata. She puts a hand on his shoulder. You can't save everyone by yourself. But maybe you can teach others to save themselves. The failed ones, as Kushina calls them, meet in an abandoned warehouse near the edge of the village. There are 12 of them. All ages, from 12 to 17. All backgrounds, some from civilian families, some from shinobi clans that disowned them when they couldn't make the cut. All of them carrying the same weight, the knowledge that they weren't good enough. Shiro stands in front of them, looking at faces that range from hopeful to skeptical to outright hostile. So, one of them says, a boy about his age, with dark hair and a scar over his eye. You're the one who's supposed to make us into soldiers. I'm not making you into anything, Shiro says. I'm giving you tools. What you do with them is your choice. What kind of tools? Shiro reaches into his pack. He pulls out a rifle, the same design he used in Yamagata, refined and improved over the past 3 months. He sets it on the table in front of him. The group goes quiet. That's a weapon, the scarred boy says. Yes. It doesn't use chakra. No. So anyone could use it. Shiro meets his eyes. That's the point. The boy is quiet for a moment. Then he steps forward, picks up the rifle, examines it. His hands are careful, precise. He's held weapons before, Shiro can tell. What do you want from us? The boy asks. Shiro looks at the group. At the failed ones. The forgotten. The people who were told they'd never be anything. Everything, he says. I want everything you have. Because what's coming? He pauses. What's coming is going to take everything we have to stop it. Training begins the next day. Shiro doesn't teach them to fight like shinobi. He can't. He doesn't know how. He teaches them to fight like him, to use the weapons he's created, to work together, to think strategically. It's not easy. The scarred boy, whose name is Kenji, is a natural with the rifle. He picks up the weapon and within an hour is hitting targets at 50 paces. But he's reckless. He charges into fights without thinking, relying on his speed and reflexes instead of his head. The others have their own problems. Mei, a girl of 14 who was born with chakra coils too small to use even basic jutsu, is terrified of the weapons. She flinches every time she fires, her shots going wild. But she's smart, smarter than anyone else in the group. She sees patterns, anticipates movements, thinks 3 steps ahead. There's Yuki, who was trained as a shinobi for 6 years before being told she'd never make chunin. She knows more about tactics and strategy than Shiro does. But she's bitter. Angry. She doesn't trust anyone, least of all a 13-year-old who claims to have a way for her to fight back. And there's Ren, the youngest, only 12, who can barely hold a rifle steady. He's small, quiet, almost invisible. But he's fast. Faster than anyone in the group. And he's patient. He watches, learns, adapts. Shiro works with each of them individually, the way he worked with the villagers in Yamagata. He shows them the weapons. He shows them how to maintain them, how to use them, how to make them last. But more than that, he shows them how to think. You're not shinobi, he tells them on the third day. You'll never be shinobi. You'll never have the power to fight the way they fight. So you have to fight smarter. How? Kenji asks. How do you fight smarter? Shiro thinks about the temple. About the seal network he turned into a weapon. About the raiders in Yamagata who expected an easy victory and found something else. You find their weaknesses, he says. Everyone has them. Even the strongest shinobi. You find the thing they don't expect, the thing they can't prepare for, and you hit them there. And what's our thing? Mei asks quietly. What's the thing we can do that they can't expect? Shiro looks at her. At all of them. Everything, he says. You're not shinobi. You don't think like shinobi. You don't fight like shinobi. That's your advantage. They've been training their whole lives to fight people who fight like them. They have no idea what to do with someone who doesn't. Weeks pass. The group gets better. Not fast, there's no fast way to learn what Shiro is teaching. But they get better. Kenji learns to control his recklessness, to wait for the right moment instead of charging in. Mei learns to hold the rifle without flinching, to aim and fire without fear. Yuki starts to trust, not completely, but enough to work with the others instead of against them. And Ren becomes something else. He's fast, like Shiro noticed. But more than that, he's silent. He moves through the training ground like a ghost, leaving no trace, making no sound. When Shiro gives him a knife, a short blade, balanced for close quarters, Ren holds it like he's been holding it his whole life. He's not a shinobi. He'll never be a shinobi. But he's something else. Something dangerous. Shiro watches them train, and for the first time since the temple, he feels something like hope. The first mission comes 2 months in. It's small, a supply convoy moving through disputed territory, the kind of thing that would normally be handled by a single Chunin team. But the war is escalating. Shinobi are being pulled to the front lines, and the small missions are being left undone. Kushina brings the request to Shiro. There's a village north of here, she says. It's been hit by raiders twice in the past month. They're running out of food. They need supplies, but the roads aren't safe. How many raiders? Unknown. Maybe a dozen. Maybe more. Shiro looks at the group. At Kenji, who's checking his rifle with practiced hands. At Mei, who's studying a map of the region. At Yuki, who's already planning the route. At Ren, who's sharpening his knife in the corner. They're ready. They're not shinobi. They're not heroes. They're just people who were told they weren't good enough, trying to prove something to themselves. They're ready. We'll take it, Shiro says. The mission goes wrong from the start. The raiders aren't a dozen. They're 30. And they're not random bandits. They're shinobi, trained and equipped, wearing the colors of a minor village that's allied with IWA. Shiro sees them before the others do. 30 chakra signatures, spread out along the road, waiting in ambush. He calls the group to a halt. Change of plans? He says quietly. There are more of them than we thought. 30. Maybe more. Kenji's hand tightens on his rifle. We can still. No. Shiro's voice is firm. We can't fight 30 shinobi head-on. Not yet. We need to change the terrain. What do you have in mind? Shiro looks at the map Mei is holding. At the road, the hills, the river that runs through the valley. We draw them into the river valley, he says. Use the hills for cover. Pick them off one by one. That's 30 shinobi, Yuki says. Even if we get 10, the rest will be on us before we can reload. Not if they don't know where we are. He looks at Rin. Can you do it? The boy doesn't answer. He just takes his knife and slips into the trees, silent as a ghost. The first raider dies without a sound. He's standing watch on the ridge above the road, looking for targets. He doesn't see Rin coming up behind him. Doesn't feel the knife until it's already in his throat. Rin lowers the body to the ground. Takes the raider's weapons. Moves on. The second raider is further down the ridge. She's talking to someone on a radio, reporting no contacts. She doesn't hear the footsteps behind her. Doesn't see the shadow until it's too late. Ren takes her out the same way. Quiet. Efficient. Like he's done it 100 times. He hasn't. But Shiro taught him how. Showed him the weak points in the human body, the places where a knife can end a life before the victim even knows they're dying. Ren never asked why he needed to know. He knows. By the time the sun sets, Ren has taken out 7 raiders. The others are getting nervous, moving closer together, watching the shadows. They know something is wrong. They don't know what. That's when Shiro hits them. He doesn't use the rifles. They're too loud, too obvious. Instead, he uses the blade seals, the same tags he gave the villagers in Yamagata. He throws them from the ridge, one after another, each one exploding in a burst of chakra and blades. The raiders scatter. They're trained for this, for ambushes, for attacks from hidden enemies. They move in formation, covering each other, looking for the source of the attack. They don't find it. Shiro is already moving. He drops from the ridge, a sword forming in each hand, and cuts down 2 raiders before they even see him. The third manages to block, but Shiro's second sword is already moving, slipping past the guard, finding flesh. He doesn't stop. He can't. His circuits are burning. His hands are shaking. But every raider he kills is one less for the others to face. One less person who can hurt them. The raiders are rallying now. They found cover, formed a defensive line. They're firing back, jutsu and kunai and shuriken, all of it aimed at the spot where Shiro was standing a second ago. He's not there. He's behind them. His swords come down, and 2 more raiders fall. But there are too many. His circuits are failing. The blades in his hands are flickering, unstable, the images breaking apart in his mind. He can't hold them anymore. He lets them go. The swords dissolve. And for a moment, Shiro is standing in the middle of a battlefield with no weapons, no defenses, nothing but his broken body and his failing circuits. The raiders see it. They smile. And then the rifles open fire. Kenji's shot takes the closest raider in the chest. Mei's takes another in the head. Yuki's takes a third, then a fourth, her shots precise and deadly. The raiders break. They're not soldiers. They're raiders, used to fighting farmers and civilians, not people who shoot back. When half their number are dead and the rest are running, they don't make a stand. They run. Shiro watches them go. His legs give out. He falls to his knees in the dirt, his hands pressed to the ground, his breath coming in ragged gasps. His circuits are ruined. He can feel them, burned, twisted, useless. It'll be weeks before he can trace again. Maybe months. But they're alive. The group is alive. Kenji appears beside him, pulling him up. "You crazy bastard," he says, but he's laughing. "You absolute crazy bastard." Shiro tries to smile. He's not sure if it works. "The supplies?" he manages. "We need to get the supplies to the village." "They're safe. Mei is there, her face pale but steady. We checked. All of them." Shiro nods. He looks at the bodies. At the blood. At the weapons scattered across the ground. He thinks about the temple. About the children he saved. About the ones he couldn't. "Good," he says. And for a moment, just a moment, he lets himself believe that maybe, this is enough. End of Chapter 4. Chapter 5, The Gathering Storm. The war finds them 6 months later. It's been building for months, skirmishes along the borders, villages burning, refugees flooding into Konoha. The peace that has held since the Third Shinobi War is crumbling, and everyone knows it. Shiro knows it better than most. He's been tracking the movements of enemy forces for a year now. He knows the troop deployments, the supply lines, the strategic objectives. He knows that IWA is planning something big, something that will change the shape of the war. He just doesn't know what. "The northern border is the weak point," Yuki says, tracing a line on the map spread across the table. She's become their strategist, the one who sees the patterns that others miss. "If IWA pushes through here, they can cut off our supply lines to the eastern front. We'd have to pull forces from the south to reinforce, and that would leave the coastal villages exposed." Shiro studies the map. The northern border is a series of mountain passes, narrow and treacherous, easily defended. But if the defenders are spread thin, and they are stretched across multiple fronts, the passes could be broken. "How many shinobi are stationed there now?" "2 squads. 12 in total." "Against what?" Yuki hesitates. "Our intelligence suggests at least 50. Maybe more." The room goes quiet. 12 shinobi against 50. The passes will hold for a day, maybe 2. Then the enemy will break through, and the villages behind them, farming communities, mostly, with a few mining towns, will be overrun. "What about reinforcements?" Kenji asks. "There aren't any," Yuki's voice is flat. Everyone's already committed to the other fronts. If we pull forces from anywhere else, we risk losing ground we can't afford to lose. So we let the north fall? No one's letting anything fall. Shiro's voice cuts through the tension. We're going to hold the passes. Kenji stares at him. With what? There are 12 of us. We're not shinobi. We're not. You're not what? Shiro meets his eyes. Not trained? Not equipped? Not ready? He looks around the room. I've been teaching you for 6 months. You've been training, fighting, learning to use weapons that no one in this world has ever seen. You're not shinobi. You're something better. What's that? Shiro stands up. He walks to the corner of the warehouse, to the crates he's been filling for months. Seals. Weapons. Tools. Everything he's created since he started this. Something they're not ready for. The plan is simple. That's the point. The more complex the plan, the more likely it is to fail. Shiro has learned that the hard way, in the villages he's defended, in the missions he's run with his team. Simple plans work. The mountain passes are narrow, steep, lined with old-growth forest. The enemy will have to move through them single file, their numbers useless in the confined space. That's their weakness. The 12 shinobi stationed at the passes will hold the main line. They're the only ones with the training and experience to fight Iwa's vanguard head-on. Shiro's team will do the rest. He's divided them into 3 squads of 4. Kenji leads the first squad, riflemen, positioned on the ridges above the pass. Their job is simple: shoot anyone who breaks through the main line. Yuki leads the second squad. They're carrying the blade seals, hundreds of them, placed along the pass in a pattern Shiro designed. When the enemy is in position, they'll trigger them in sequence, turning the pass into a killing field. Mei leads the third squad. They're the reserve, the ones who will fill the gaps when, not if, things go wrong. And Rin. Rin is going hunting. The night before the battle, Shiro can't sleep. He's lying in his tent, staring at the canvas above him, listening to the sounds of the camp. The shinobi from the passes are nervous, muttering among themselves, checking their equipment over and over. They don't trust the civilians who've come to fight beside them. They don't understand the weapons they're carrying. Shiro doesn't blame them. He doesn't trust himself. You're thinking too loud. He sits up. Kushina is standing in the entrance to his tent, her red hair bright in the moonlight. What are you doing here? He asks. Came to make sure you weren't about to do something stupid. He almost laughs. I'm about to lead 12 civilians into a fight against 50 shinobi. I think stupid is the kindest word for it. She settles beside him. You've done stupid things before. Remember the temple? When you were 6 years old, throwing swords at a man who could have killed you with one hand? I remember. You were stupid then too. She nudges him. But you saved those children. He's quiet for a moment. I don't know if I can save these ones. You don't have to save everyone, Shiro. Her voice is gentle. You just have to give them a chance. He looks at her. At the woman who carried him out of a burning village, who brought him to a new home, who's been protecting him for 7 years without ever asking for anything in return. Why are you really here? He asks. She's quiet for a long moment. Because I know what's going to happen tomorrow, she says. And I know that whatever happens, you're going to blame yourself. You're going to think about everyone who dies, everyone you couldn't save. You're going to carry that weight for the rest of your life. She takes his hand. I'm here to tell you that it's okay. The weight you're carrying, it's not yours alone. We're all carrying it. Everyone who's fighting tomorrow, everyone who's going to die, they chose this. They chose to fight. They chose to protect their homes, their families, their people. She squeezes his hand. You didn't force them to do anything. You gave them a choice. That's more than anyone else ever gave them. Shiro looks at their hands. At the scars on his palms, the calluses on his fingers. At the hands that have held so many swords, so many weapons, so many things that shouldn't exist. Thank you, he says. She smiles. It's the same smile she's always had, fierce and warm and impossible to refuse. Come back, she says. That's all I ask. Come back. He nods. She leaves. And Shiro lies back down, staring at the canvas above him, trying not to think about tomorrow. He fails. Dawn comes too fast. Shiro stands on the ridge above the pass, watching the enemy approach. They're a column, moving slowly, checking the ground ahead for traps. They're cautious, more cautious than they should be, maybe. Someone has told them something's wrong. It doesn't matter. The trap is already set. Rin moves through the forest below, silent as a ghost. He's been in position since midnight, watching the enemy column, waiting for the right moment. The right moment comes when the column is halfway through the pass. Rin strikes. He doesn't kill anyone. That's not his job. His job is to sow confusion, to break the column's cohesion, to make them think they're under attack from all sides. He throws a blade seal into the middle of the column. It explodes in a burst of light and sound, not blades, a distraction, not an attack. The shinobi scatter, looking for cover, looking for the enemy they think is all around them. They don't see the real threat. On the ridge, Kenji raises his rifle. Fire! The first volley takes 5 shinobi. The second takes 3 more. The survivors are trying to organize, trying to find the source of the attack, but they're in the open, exposed, with nowhere to go. The shinobi from the passes hit them from the front. They're outnumbered, 12 against the 40 who are left. But the enemy is confused, disorganized, and the shinobi know these passes, know every rock and tree and hiding place. The fight is brutal. Shiro watches from the ridge, his hands clenched at his sides. He wants to be down there. Wants to fight. But his job is here, coordinating, watching for the thing that goes wrong. It goes wrong 10 minutes in. The enemy commander, a jonin, from the look of her, with the cold efficiency of a veteran, has rallied her forces. She's seen the pattern of the attack, seen the way the shinobi are using the terrain, and she's adapting. She sends a squad up the side of the pass, climbing the sheer rock face to get above the defenders. If they reach the ridge, they'll have a clear shot at Kenji's squad, at the shinobi below, at everyone. Shiro doesn't think. He moves. His circuits flare as he traces a sword, not the practice blades he's been using, but something else. Something he's been saving for a moment like this. Kansho. The blade appears in his hand, white and curved, perfectly balanced. Its twin, Bakuya, forms in his other hand. They're not real, they've never been real. But they're more real than anything he's ever projected. He drops off the ridge, sword spinning, and meets the enemy squad halfway up the cliff. The first shinobi doesn't even see him coming. Kansho takes him in the chest, cutting through his armor like paper. The second manages to block, but Bakuya is already moving, slipping past the block, finding the gap in his defense. The third shinobi is faster. She's a kunoichi young, with the cold eyes of someone who's been fighting for years. She meets Shiro's blades with her own, metal ringing against metal, sparks flying in the morning light. "You're not a shinobi," she says. "No. You're the one who's been arming the civilians. The one who's been turning farmers into soldiers." Shiro doesn't answer. He's too busy trying to stay alive. The kunoichi is good, better than him, faster, stronger. She's driving him back, forcing him down the cliff, away from the ridge. "You think this changes anything?" she asks. "You think your weapons, your tactics, you think any of it matters? We're shinobi. We've been fighting wars for centuries. You're just a child playing at being a hero." Shiro's swords flicker. His circuits are burning, the strain of projecting Kansho and Bakuya pushing him to his limit. "You're right," he says. "I'm not a hero." He drops the swords. They dissolve before they hit the ground, the images breaking apart in his mind. The kunoichi stares at him, confused, her own blade raised for a killing strike. Shiro's hand moves. A new blade forms in his grip. Smaller than Kansho, shorter, balanced for close quarters. He doesn't swing it. He doesn't need to. He projects it inside her guard. The blade appears in the space between them, already moving, already cutting. The kunoichi's eyes go wide. She tries to block, but it's too late. The blade finds her throat, and she falls. Shiro stands over her body. His hands are shaking. His circuits are screaming. The blade in his hand is dissolving, the image too damaged to hold. He looks down at the woman he just killed. She was young. Younger than Kushina. Younger than he'll be in a few years. She had a family, probably. People who loved her. People who are going to get a letter in a few weeks telling them she's not coming home. He turns away. There's no time for this. There's never time for this. The battle lasts 4 hours. When it's over, the pass is littered with bodies. 47 IWA shinobi dead. 3 of the defenders from the passes. 1 of Shiro's team. Hana. She was the girl from Yamagata, the one who fired the first shot, the one who killed the raider who came over the wall. She joined Shiro's team 3 months ago, after the raiders hit her village again. She wanted to fight. Wanted to protect the people she loved. She died in the second hour, taking a kunai meant for one of the pass defenders. Shiro finds her body near the end of the pass, her rifle still clutched in her hands. Her face is peaceful, almost sleeping. There's blood on her chest, dark and wet, spreading across the armor he gave her. The armor didn't save her. It couldn't. He kneels beside her, closes her eyes. His hands are steady. His face is calm. Inside, something is breaking. He thinks about the temple. About the children he saved. About the men he buried. About all the people he couldn't save, all the people who died because he wasn't fast enough, strong enough, good enough. He thinks about the Hill of Swords. About the man with his face, standing among the blades waiting. "You're going to regret this," the man said. Shiro looks at Hana's face. At the face of a girl who trusted him, who followed him, who died because he couldn't protect her. "I know," he whispers. End of Chapter 5. Chapter 6, The Hollow Man. Hana's death changes things. Not the war goes on, the same as before, battles and skirmishes and villages burning. But something changes in Shiro. Something breaks that he can't fix. He stops sleeping. He stops eating, except when Kushina forces him. He stops talking, except when he has to give orders. He spends his nights in the warehouse, working on the weapons, improving them, refining them, making them better. He doesn't let himself think about Hana. If he thinks about her, he'll think about all the others. The raiders he killed in Yamagata. The shinobi he killed in the pass. The faces he sees every time he closes his eyes. So he doesn't close his eyes. He works. The days blur together. Weeks pass. The team notices, how could they not, but no one says anything. They've all lost people. They all carry the same weight. But Shiro's weight is different. It's heavier. "You're going to kill yourself." He's in the warehouse, working on a new design, a rifle that can fire multiple shots without reloading, something he's been trying to figure out for weeks. He doesn't look up when Kushina speaks. "I'm fine." "You're not fine." She walks over, takes the rifle from his hands. "You're not sleeping. You're not eating. You're barely talking. You're running yourself into the ground, and for what?" He looks at her. "For what? For the people who are dying. For the villages that are burning. For the war that's killing everyone we care about." "That's not your war." "It became my war when I picked up a sword." "No." Her voice is sharp. "It became your war when you decided that you had to save everyone. When you decided that every death was your fault. When you decided that you didn't deserve to rest, to eat, to live, because other people were dying." She steps closer. "I've watched you for years, Shiro. I've watched you give everything, to protect people who can't protect themselves. And I've watched you destroy yourself doing it. What do you want me to do? Stop? I want you to live." Her voice cracks. "I want you to stop pretending that you're not a person. That you don't need to eat and sleep and be happy. That you're just a weapon, a tool, something that can be used until it breaks." Shiro is quiet. He wants to tell her she's wrong. That he's not destroying himself. That everything he's doing, everything he's sacrificing is worth it. But he can't. Because she's right. He looks at his hands. At the scars, the calluses, the shaking that won't stop. He thinks about Hana. About the temple. About the hill of swords that waits for him at the end of this path. "I don't know how to stop," he says. Kushina's face softens. She takes his hands, the shaking hands, the broken hands, and holds them. "Then let me help you." That night he dreams. He's on the hill again. The sky is red, the ground is covered in swords, and the man with his face is waiting. "You're going to destroy yourself," Archer says. "I told you. 3 years ago. You're going to destroy yourself, and you're going to take everyone who follows you with you." Shiro looks at the swords. At the endless field of blades, each one a weapon he's traced, each one a life he's taken. "I saved people," he says. "At the pass. At Yamagata. In the villages I protected." "You killed people too." "I know." Do you? Do you really know? Or do you just say the words, the way you've always said them, without ever understanding what they mean?" Shiro is quiet. Archer walks toward him, through the field of swords. His footsteps are silent, his face unreadable. "I was you," he says. I had the same ideals. The same dreams. The same belief that I could save everyone if I just tried hard enough. And you know where it got me? He stops in front of Shiro. It got me here. Alone, on a hill of swords, with nothing but the ghosts of everyone I failed. Shiro looks at the man's face. At his own face, older, harder, worn down by years of fighting. You're not me, he says. Archer's eyes narrow. What? I'm not you. Shiro's voice is steady. I know what you are. You're the person I could become if I keep going the way I'm going. If I keep believing that I can save everyone, that I can carry the weight of the world on my shoulders without breaking. He steps forward. But I'm not you. I have people who care about me. People who won't let me become this. He gestures at the hill, at the swords, at the red sky. Kushina. Kenji. Mei. Yuki. Rin. They're not going to let me walk this path alone. Archer's face twists. They'll die. Everyone you care about will die, the same way everyone I cared about died. That's the price of being a hero. No. Shiro meets his eyes. That's the price of being a hero alone. And I'm not alone. He turns away from Archer, away from the hill, away from the future he's been running toward since he was 6 years old. I'm not going to be you, he says over his shoulder. I'm going to be something better. He wakes up. The warehouse is empty. The morning light is filtering through the windows, pale and cold. Shiro sits up, rubbing his face, trying to remember the last time he slept. He can't. But for the first time in weeks, the weight on his chest feels lighter. He gets up. He walks to the door, opens it, steps outside. The village is waking up around him. People are moving through the streets, going to work, going to school, going about their lives. Normal people. People who don't dream about hills of swords and men with his face. He watches them for a moment. Then he goes to find Kushina. She's in the training ground, working through a set of forms with her chains. She's been practicing more lately, preparing for the war that's coming, for the battles that no one can avoid. He waits until she finishes. I need to talk to you, he says. She looks at him. Really looks. For a moment, something flickers in her eyes, surprise, maybe, or hope. Okay. They walk to the river, to the spot where they used to sit when he was younger, when the war was just something happening in other countries, other villages. I've been thinking, he says, about what you said, about what I'm doing to myself. She doesn't say anything, just waits. You were right. The words are hard to say, harder than he expected. I've been destroying myself. I've been so focused on protecting everyone else that I forgot to protect the one person who matters. He looks at her. You. Kushina's eyes widen. You've been protecting me since I was 6 years old, he says. You carried me out of a burning village. You brought me to Konoha. You gave me a home, a family, a reason to keep going. And I've been so busy trying to save everyone else that I forgot to thank you. Shiro. Let me finish. He takes a breath. I'm not going to stop fighting. I can't. There are too many people who need help, too many villages that need protection. But I'm not going to do it alone anymore. I'm not going to carry the weight by myself. He meets her eyes. I'm going to let people help me. I'm going to let you help me. And I'm going to stop pretending that I'm not allowed to be happy. Kushina is crying. He doesn't realize it at first, she's so still, so quiet. But there are tears running down her face, and her hands are shaking, and when she reaches for him, she pulls him into a hug so tight he can barely breathe. You idiot, she whispers. You stupid, stubborn idiot. He hugs her back. I know, he says. That night, he goes to the cemetery. Hana's grave is near the edge, away from the others. She was a civilian, not a shinobi, and no one knew where to put her. Shiro chose this spot. It's quiet here. Peaceful. He kneels beside the grave. I'm sorry, he says. I should have been faster. Should have been stronger. Should have protected you. The wind moves through the trees. I'm not going to forget you. I'm not going to forget any of them. The people I couldn't save. The people I killed. They're part of me now. They always will be. He looks at the grave marker. At the name carved into the stone. But I'm not going to let them destroy me. I'm not going to let the weight of what I've done crush me into something I don't want to be. He stands up. I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep protecting people. But I'm going to do it as myself, not as a weapon, not as a tool, not as a hero. Just as Shiro. He turns away from the grave. He doesn't look back. The next day, he goes back to the warehouse. The team is there, waiting for him. Kenji, cleaning his rifle. Mei, studying a map. Yuki, sharpening her knives. Ren, sitting in the corner, silent as always. They look at him when he walks in. For a moment, no one says anything. Then Kenji stands up. You look like shit, he says. Shiro almost laughs. I feel like shit. Yeah, well, Kenji shrugs. We've all been there. Mei looks up from her map. Are you okay? It's a simple question. A human question. The kind of question people ask when they care about someone. Shiro thinks about it. I'm getting there, he says. They nod. Accept it. Go back to what they were doing. And for the first time in weeks, Shiro feels like maybe, just maybe, he's not alone. End of Chapter 6. Chapter 7, The Valley of Blades. The final battle comes in autumn. Iwa's main force has broken through the eastern front. 50,000 shinobi are pouring into the land of fire, burning everything in their path. Konoha's forces are falling back, trying to regroup, trying to buy time. But there's nowhere left to fall back to. The only thing standing between Iwa and the heart of the land of fire is a single valley. A narrow pass, surrounded by mountains, the last defensible position before the plains. If it falls, Konoha falls. Shiro's team is there. They're not the only ones. The shinobi from the passes are there, the ones who survived the first battle. Refugees from the villages he protected, armed with his weapons. Volunteers from Konoha, civilians who picked up rifles instead of running. 300 people. Against 50,000. The odds are impossible. But Shiro has been preparing for this for 7 years. The valley is a killing ground. Shiro chose it for a reason. The walls are steep, nearly vertical, impossible to climb. The floor is narrow, barely wide enough for 10 men to walk abreast. And at the far end, a wall of stone that would take days to break through. The Iwa forces will have to come through single file. And when they do, Shiro has spent months seeding the valley with seals. Thousands of them, buried in the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Blade seals, explosive tags, barriers that will trap the enemy in the kill zone. He's traced weapons for every one of his soldiers. Rifles that can fire without reloading. Armor that can stop a kunai. Blades that can cut through chakra-enhanced steel. He's given them everything he has. Now it's up to them. The night before the battle, Shiro walks through the camp. He talks to the soldiers. Not about tactics, not about strategy, about their lives. Their families. The things they're fighting for. He listens to a farmer from the northern villages talk about his wife, his children, the harvest that's waiting for him when he gets home. He listens to a young woman from Konoha talk about her brother, a shinobi who died in the first week of the war, about the rage she carries with her every day. He listens to an old man who fought in the Third War talk about the friends he lost, the peace he thought they'd won, the war that came anyway. And he listens to Kenji, who talks about Hana. I should have been there, Kenji says. I was on the ridge. I had a clear shot at the shinobi who killed her. But I hesitated. I was afraid I'd hit one of our own people. He looks at Shiro. I've been carrying that for months. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face. Shiro is quiet for a moment. I know, he says. I see her too. Every night. Every time I close my eyes. Kenji nods. How do you live with it? The guilt. The weight. Shiro thinks about the Hill of Swords. About Archer. About the man he could become if he lets the weight crush him. I live with it by remembering that she chose to fight, he says. She knew the risks. She knew she might die. But she fought anyway. She fought for her village, her family, the people she loved. He looks at Kenji. She didn't die because you hesitated. She died because she was brave enough to stand when others ran. And the only way we honor that is by being brave enough to stand too. Kenji is quiet for a long time. Then he nods. Tomorrow, he says. Tomorrow we stand. Shiro smiles. Tomorrow we stand. Dawn comes. The Iwa forces are massing at the mouth of the valley. 50,000 shinobi, stretching back as far as the eye can see. Their chakra signatures are a wall of light, so bright it makes Shiro's head ache. He stands on the ridge above the valley, looking down at his soldiers. 300 people, armed with weapons that shouldn't exist, standing in a place that will become a graveyard. Kushina is beside him. She came with the reinforcements, the last forces Konoha could spare. She's wearing her armor, her chains ready, her face set. "You don't have to be here," he says. She laughs. "Where else would I be?" He doesn't answer. There's nothing to say. The first wave of IWA forces enters the valley. They're cautious, moving slowly, checking for traps. They've heard about the weapons, the tactics, the boy who's been turning civilians into soldiers. They're not taking chances. But they don't know what they're walking into. Shiro waits until the first 1,000 are in the valley. Then he raises his hand. Now. The valley explodes. Blade seals trigger in sequence, turning the walls into a storm of metal. The IWA shinobi scatter, trying to find cover, trying to escape. But there's nowhere to go. The valley is a box, and the walls are bleeding blades. The second wave tries to push through. They're faster now, more desperate, using their jutsu to shield themselves from the storm. But Shiro's soldiers are waiting for them. Rifles open fire from the ridges, picking off the shinobi who make it past the blade seals. The shots are precise, deadly, each one taking a life. The IWA forces are breaking. They've never seen anything like this, a battle where they can't use their speed, their power, their numbers. They're trapped in a killing field, and every second more of them die. But there are 50,000 of them. And Shiro's soldiers are running out of ammunition. The battle lasts 3 days. Shiro doesn't sleep. Doesn't eat. He moves from ridge to ridge, projecting weapons for his soldiers, reinforcing the seals, fighting wherever the line is weakest. His circuits are destroyed. He can feel them, broken, burned, useless. Every projection is agony. Every sword he traces leaves scars that won't heal. But he doesn't stop. He can't. On the second day, the IWA forces break through the western ridge. Kenji's squad is there, holding the line, but they're outnumbered, outgunned, and they're falling back. Shiro reaches them in seconds. He's not sure how. His body is moving on its own, tracing swords before he even thinks about it, cutting down shinobi who are faster, stronger, better trained than he is. He's not fighting anymore. He's becoming. Kansho and Bakuya appear in his hands, white and black, perfectly balanced. He moves through the enemy like a blade through water, cutting, slashing, killing. He doesn't think about the lives he's taking. If he thinks, he'll stop. And if he stops, people die. Kenji is beside him, firing his rifle, covering his back. Mei is on the other ridge, directing the reserves, sending them where they're needed most. Yuki is leading a charge into the valley, her knives flashing, her face a mask of fury. And Rin. Rin is everywhere. He moves through the chaos like a ghost, appearing where the enemy least expects him, killing and disappearing before anyone can react. He's not a shinobi. He's not a soldier. He's something else. Something Shiro created. Something he's not sure he should have created. But there's no time for doubts. No time for regrets. There's only the battle. On the third day, the IWA forces break. They've lost 10,000 in the valley. Another 5,000 wounded. Their commander is dead, killed by Kushina's chains, torn apart by the same power that was meant to bind tailed beasts. The survivors are retreating, streaming back toward the mountains, toward the border, toward the war they thought they'd already won. Shiro stands on the ridge, watching them go. His body is broken. His circuits are ruined. His hands are shaking so badly he can't hold the sword. But the valley is safe. The land of fire is safe. And the people who trusted him, who followed him, who fought beside him, they're alive. He looks at the bodies below. At the dead shinobi, the dead soldiers, the dead who trusted him and the dead who fought against him. He looks at the blood on the ground, the smoke in the air, the ruins of the valley that will never be the same. He thinks about Hana. About the temple. About the Hill of Swords. And for the first time in 7 years he lets himself cry. Kushina finds him there, hours later. He's sitting on the ridge, staring at the valley. The sun is setting, painting the sky red. The same red as the sky in his dreams. She sits beside him. "It's over," she says. He nods. "You saved them. The villages, the people, the land of fire. You saved them." He's quiet for a moment. "At what cost?" he asks. She doesn't answer. There's no answer to give. They sit together in the silence, watching the sun go down. And for the first time in a very long time, Shiro doesn't think about the Hill of Swords. He thinks about tomorrow. End of Chapter 7. Chapter 8. The Shape of Things to Come. The war ends 3 weeks later. Iwa's defeat at the valley broke their momentum. Without the supplies they'd hoped to capture, without the strategic position they'd planned to take, their forces crumbled. Konoha's shinobi pushed them back, across the border, out of the Land of Fire. Peace negotiations begin in the winter. Shiro doesn't go to them. He's not a diplomat. He's not a shinobi. He's just a boy who made weapons in a warehouse and gave them to people who needed to fight. But his weapons changed the war. The other villages have seen what he created. They've seen the rifles, the blade seals, the armor that can stop a kunai. They've seen what happens when civilians are given the tools to fight back. They're afraid. The offer comes in spring. A delegation from the Land of Fire's government arrives in Konoha, requesting a meeting with the boy who turned the tide of the war. They want to talk about the weapons, about the tactics, about the future of warfare. Shiro meets them in the Hokage's office. He's not nervous. After everything he's been through, the temple, the battles, the valley, a meeting with politicians seems almost easy. But he's not ready for what they ask. The daimyo wants to fund your project, the lead diplomat says. He wants to see your weapons produced on a larger scale, distributed to villages across the Land of Fire. Shiro is quiet. The war showed us that our current defenses aren't enough. We need to be able to protect our people, even when shinobi aren't available. Your weapons can do that. What about the shinobi? Shiro asks. What do they think about this? The diplomat hesitates. The shinobi clans have concerns. They believe that arming civilians will destabilize the balance of power. That it will lead to more wars, not fewer. And what do you believe? The diplomat looks at him. At the 13-year-old boy who changed the world. I believe that the old ways aren't working. That if we want peace, we need to be strong enough to defend it. Your weapons give us that strength. Shiro looks at Kushina, standing in the corner of the room. Her face is unreadable. I'll think about it, he says. That night, he walks through Konoha. The village is rebuilding. The war left scars, buildings damaged, families broken, lives lost. But there's hope here. People are coming back, rebuilding, planting gardens in the empty lots where houses used to stand. He thinks about the diplomat's offer. If he says yes, his weapons will be everywhere. Every village, every town, every home will have the tools to defend itself. No one will have to stand alone against raiders and shinobi and armies that come in the night. But if he says yes, he's creating a new kind of war. A war where anyone can kill. A war where the old rules, the old balance, the old ways of doing things, all of it will be swept away. He thinks about Hana. She died holding one of his rifles. She died fighting for her village, her family, the people she loved. If he says no, people like Hana will keep dying. They'll die because they didn't have the tools to fight back, the weapons to defend themselves, the chance to stand against the people who would hurt them. If he says yes, more people will die. But maybe, fewer of them will die helpless. He stops in the middle of the village, looking up at the Hokage monument. The faces of the leaders who came before, carved into the stone, watching over the village they built. He thinks about what it means to be a hero. For so long, he thought it meant saving everyone. Carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Sacrificing everything for people who couldn't save themselves. But that's not what heroes are. Heroes are the people who stand up when everyone else runs. The people who fight for what they believe in, even when they know they might lose. The people who give others the tools to save themselves. He thinks about the failed ones. The people who were told they weren't good enough, who were left behind, who were forgotten. He gave them a chance. He gave them weapons. He gave them a reason to fight. They didn't become heroes because of him. They were heroes already. He just helped them see it. He looks at the monument one more time. Then he turns and walks back toward the warehouse. The team is waiting for him. Kenji, cleaning his rifle. Mei, studying a map. Yuki, sharpening her knives. Ren, sitting in the corner, silent as always. They look at him when he walks in. The daimyo wants to fund the project, he says. They're quiet. He wants to produce the weapons on a larger scale. Distribute them to villages across the Land of Fire. Kenji's hand stops on his rifle. What did you tell him? I told him I'd think about it. Mei looks up from her map. What's there to think about? This is what we've been working toward. This is what we've been fighting for. Is it? Shiro asks. We started this because we wanted to protect people. To give them a chance to fight back. But if we give everyone weapons, if we turn every village into a fortress, what happens then? Yuki sets down her knives. Then people stop dying because they couldn't defend themselves. And what about the people who die because they could defend themselves? What about the wars that get bigger, bloodier, because everyone has weapons now? No one answers. Shiro looks at them. At the people who trusted him, followed him, fought beside him. At the people who were told they weren't good enough, who proved everyone wrong, who became something more than anyone expected. I don't know what the right answer is, he says. I don't know if there is a right answer. But I know that whatever we do it together. We do it as a team. As a family. He looks at each of them. We started this because we wanted to protect people. That hasn't changed. It will never change. But the way we do it, that might have to change. We might have to be smarter. More careful. More thoughtful about the weapons we create and the people we give them to. He takes a breath. But whatever we decide it together. They're quiet for a long moment. Then Kenji stands up. I'm with you, he says. Mei nods. Me too. Yuki picks up her knives. Always. Rin doesn't say anything. He just nods, the same way he always does. Shiro looks at them. He thinks about the temple. About the children he saved, the ones who got out, the ones who lived because he was brave enough to stand when everyone else ran. He thinks about Hana. About the girl who fired the first shot, who fought for her village, who died with a weapon in her hands. He thinks about Archer. About the man he could have become, the hero who walked alone, who carried the weight of the world until it crushed him. He's not that man. He never will be. Because he has people who love him. People who fight beside him. People who carry the weight with him. Then we start tomorrow, he says. He finds Kushina on the roof of the Hokage's building. She's sitting on the edge, looking out at the village, her red hair bright in the moonlight. He sits beside her. You made a decision, she says. We made a decision. She looks at him. What did you decide? He's quiet for a moment. We're going to accept the daimyo's offer. But on our terms. The weapons stay with us. We decide who gets them and when. We train the people who use them. We make sure they're used to protect, not to destroy. Kushina nods slowly. And the shinobi? The clans who are afraid of what you're creating? They'll have to get used to it. He looks out at the village. The world is changing. The old ways aren't working. If we want peace, we need to be strong enough to defend it. My weapons give people that strength. And what about you? What do you want? He thinks about the question. What does he want? He wants to protect people. He wants to give them the tools to protect themselves. He wants to build something that will last, something that will make the world better, something that will mean that children like the ones in the temple don't have to be afraid. He wants to be happy. He wants to live. I want to keep doing what I'm doing, he says. But I want to do it with people who care about me. I want to build something that matters. I want to protect the people I love. He looks at her. I want to be a person, not a weapon. Kushina smiles. It's the same smile she's always had, fierce and warm and impossible to refuse. You already are, she says. That night he dreams. He's on the hill again. The sky is red, the ground is covered in swords, and the man with his face is waiting. But something is different. The swords are fading. One by one, they're dissolving, disappearing, leaving behind empty ground. The sky is clearing, the red giving way to blue, the endless field of blades shrinking to nothing. Archer is watching him. You chose differently, he says. Not a question. Shiro nods. I chose to let people help me. Archer is quiet for a long moment. Then he smiles, not the bitter smile he's always worn, but something softer. Something almost like hope. Maybe there's another way, he says. Maybe you found it. He starts to fade, the same way the swords are fading, his image dissolving into light. Don't make the same mistakes I did, he says. Don't walk alone. Don't carry the weight by yourself. And whatever you do, He looks at Shiro. Don't become me. He's gone. Shiro stands alone on the hill. The swords are gone. The sky is blue. And for the first time in his life, there's no weight on his shoulders. He opens his eyes. The sun is rising over Konoha. Shiro sits up, looking out the window at the village below. People are waking up, starting their day, going about their lives. Normal people. People who don't dream about hills of swords and men with his face. He thinks about the future. There will be more wars. More battles. More people who need protecting. The weapons he's created will change the world, and not everyone will be happy about it. There will be challenges, conflicts, choices he doesn't want to make. But he won't face them alone. He has Kushina, who carried him out of a burning village and gave him a home. He has Kenji, Mei, Yuki, Rin, the failed ones, the forgotten ones, the people who became something more because they chose to fight. He has the villages he protected, the people he saved, the lives he changed. And he has himself. Not a hero. Not a weapon. Just a boy who chose to stand when others ran. He gets out of bed. There's work to do. Weapons to build. People to train. A future to shape. But first, he walks to the kitchen. Kushina is there, making breakfast, her hair a mess, her face still sleepy. She looks at him when he walks in. You're up early. I'm hungry. She laughs. About time. He sits at the table, watching her cook. It's a simple thing, eggs and rice, the same breakfast she's been making for years. But it smells like home. He thinks about the temple. About the fire. About the children who got out because he was brave enough to stand. He thinks about Hana. About the girl who died with a weapon in her hands, who fought for her village, who never got to see the peace she helped win. He thinks about Archer. About the man who walked alone, who carried the weight until it crushed him, who couldn't see another way. Shiro sees another way. It's not easy. It's not perfect. There will be pain and loss and choices that keep him up at night. But it's his way. Kushina sets a plate in front of him. She sits across the table, watching him with the same fierce warmth she's always had. You okay? She asks. He looks at the food. At the kitchen. At the woman who saved him when he was 6 years old, who's been saving him ever since. Yeah, he says. I think I am. He picks up his chopsticks. And for the first time in his life, he doesn't think about the hill of swords. He thinks about breakfast. Epilogue. The warehouse is quiet. It's late, past midnight, the moon high and cold over Konoha. The village is asleep, the war a memory, the future waiting to be built. Shiro stands in the center of the room, a blade in each hand. They're not projections this time. They're real, forged from steel and chakra, made by his hands, his craft, his choice. He swings them once, twice, feeling the weight, the balance, the truth of them. They're not perfect. They never will be. But they're his. He sets them down on the workbench. Around him, the warehouse is filled with things he's made, rifles and armor, blade seals and tools, the weapons that changed a war and the weapons that will shape a future. He looks at them. He thinks about the temple. About the children who got out. About the ones who didn't. He thinks about Hana. About the girl who died with a weapon in her hands. He thinks about Archer. About the man who walked alone, who carried the weight until it crushed him. He's not that man. He never will be. He walks to the door, turns off the lights, steps outside. The village is quiet. Peaceful. The kind of peace that people fought for, died for, built for. Shiro looks at it. He thinks about the future. About the work that needs to be done. About the people who need protecting. He thinks about the weapons he's made and the lives they've saved and the lives they've taken. He thinks about what it means to be a hero. A hero isn't someone who saves everyone. It's someone who chooses who they refuse to let die. Shiro closes his eyes. When he opens them, the sun is rising.